What is up, YouTube? And we are back for another installment of Project Beastmaster. I've been doing a lot of different stuff. It's been a little bit since I posted, so sorry about that. Just got a lot of things going on and work and you name it, and it's only so many hours in the day. So back today, have a little bit of time, and we're gonna go a little bit further and do a little bit more stuff to the Maverick. So just a little recap for those of you that might not have watched before. We've done the cat delete and did these mufflers have been hollowed out. I am going aftermarket mufflers, and those still have not arrived. So as of right now, these are factory mufflers, but they have been hollowed out. So we've got the cat delete exhaust wrap. Went with the Racer Tech cold air intake, Can-Am filter, and then we've got a whole lot of other stuff. But today what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be working on the charge tube. Now, for those of you guys that are new to Mavericks, or Turbo Mavericks more specifically, the charge tube is what goes from the intercooler down to the throttle body. And that would be this tube right here. You've got your turbo, and this is just going to be a quick lesson for you non-turbo guys. You turbo guys, just fast forward or just zone out for a minute. But for people that want to know or don't know, basically you've got your cold air gets sucked in, goes through your turbocharger, and comes out, goes into your intercooler at a increased pressure or a boost, comes out of the intercooler and then goes down into the motor. Now, the purpose of the intercooler is to cool that air charge. Turbos generate a large amount of heat, and once it becomes heat soaked or has saturation, that air is actually heated. Well, with heat you lose horsepower. So the purpose of the intercooler is to combat that and to lower that intake charge, that air charge, and bring it back down to atmospheric temperature. So that's what that is designed to do, is to try to cool that down. So what we're doing is on these particular motors, or this particular side-by-side, this aftercooler, or this this charge tube is kind of restrictive. And they make a lot of companies make them. The one I went with is from EVO, and a lot of you guys, everybody knows who EVO is. But PowerTune makes one, EVO makes one, Galaxy is a distributor for EVO, so they're readily available. You can get them from anybody or from a lot of places. And I went with this one. This is EVO's, and the reason I chose this charge tube is the ability to add a blow-off valve. This has 2 ports. You can do it in different configurations, and they come with all the clamps and all that stuff. I bought a blow-off valve separate. I didn't go with the EVO blow-off valve because the new blow-off valve that they make is no longer tunable, and I want to be able to tune my blow-off valve to a very specific pressure. So I went with another blow-off valve. But the blow-off valve is going to be mounted on one of these 2 taps. The other one is just plugged. And then you have to run a pressure tap, which is down by the intake, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But right now, for today, we're just going to show the installation of the actual charge tube and the teardown in order to achieve that. Now, I saved you guys the boredom of watching me pull out a seat. I don't think anybody needs to watch me pull out a seat out of their Maverick. And I also saved you the agony of watching me fight with the body pins. Yeah, so like I was saying, I went ahead and I pulled the pins out, and to do that I actually got a couple nice tools from my friends over at Matco. Mark, thank you very much. If you guys are looking for a good tool distributor and you don't have a brand of choice, I would highly recommend Matco. And just real quick, they offer a couple different versions for these pins. This is a real nice stainless steel set. They've got the special tips on there for grabbing the pins, or tabs, body pins, I don't know what you want to call them, but you know, they grab the first inner part and you pull that out. And then they also make these clip lifters, which you can use on a lot of different cars and trucks and stuff like that. So these are both really nice. You're going to spend $30 to $40 for them, but you know, they got a good warranty and high quality, and you can't really go wrong. So I pulled those pins out, and now this, you have to pull this section out to expose this whole charge tube. It's kind of up underneath the intercooler, so you're going to want to lift up, and it'll drop right out, pull right out, and now you've exposed your whole tube. And that tube runs from, like I said, from the outlet of the intercooler, comes down, kind of snakes around, and goes right down here, and that is your intake. Now I'm not taking off this other panel yet. I'm going to need to do that to do some other things once I start messing with the blow-off valve. But for today and for this video, we're just going to pull this tube off, and I'm not going to pull that panel off. I'm trying to do some other things as well, so I'm not doing that right now today. So to pull this tube off, once you get that panel off, that trim off, you've got a hose clamp up top and another hose clamp down below. You pull those off, and that will come right off. Yeah, so you got to pull those two, or loosen these two hose clamps to pull this off. One thing I would recommend before you do anything is, I mean, mine's really dusty and dirty. I didn't power wash this. It's February here. I mean, so my water to the outside and everything is shut off, so I didn't really feel like loading it up and taking it up to the quarter car wash or to my shop. So it's a little bit dirty. So I would recommend either using your air compressor, you know, your shop air, or just whatever. I'm just going to use some Simple Green and just kind of clean up a little bit before you go disturbing this, because you're down at your intake, at your throttle body, and the last thing you want to do is start pulling parts off and potentially getting mud or something like that into your throttle body. So do yourself a favor and clean up and prep before you pull this off, and you'll be thankful that you did that, because the last thing you want to do is get a hunk of mud or something like that down inside your intake, and next thing you know, you're scoring a cylinder wall or whatever. I mean, we don't need to go over all the carnage and shit that's going to happen if you do that. And if you do, you're going to be spending $5,000 on a motor. So loosen up the clamps, and I went ahead and did that with the screwdriver. Got to loosen that up a little bit more. Yes, I have a tripod. No, I'm not using it because I want to get right down in here so you guys can see. So I don't have anybody here that can help me with my filming, so we're going freehand. Yeah, loosen up your clamps enough to where you can then just kind of slide them down out of the way. Once you get that loose, just kind of twist and rock. Now you want to be careful because these tanks, these end caps on this intercooler, a lot of your aftermarkets, they're all aluminum. These are plastic, so you're going to want to be careful. You don't want to, when you put your new charge tube on, you don't want to over tighten it. You don't want to, yank on this and stuff like that, because this factory intercooler is not a one piece or not a three-piece aluminum intercooler. This is your center section, the actual cooler itself is aluminum. These are plastic tanks, so you're going to want to be careful. Just knock that one loose, kind of rock it and get it to come loose. Do the same thing down here, and I mean it comes right off. So here is your factory charge tube, charge pipe. And size wise, I mean, this is, if you look at them side by side, do a side by side comparison, you're not gaining a lot of diameter. It's not about the diameter, it's about the rigidity of these tubes. And this aftermarket tube has higher pressure tolerances, and it also has a higher burst rating. So this thing, these, believe it or not, under high burst or under high boost situations, these tubes can blow. They expand, they can contract, and they can kind of get manipulated, and they can bend and stuff like that. And they're just not as perfectly free flowing as the EVO or the aftermarkets. They have a little bit better radiuses and stuff like that. They flow better and they're stronger, and then they also give you the ability to add the blow-off valve, which is the real significant thing here. Is that is a lot better way of stopping your turbo rather than without one, because when you let go of your throttle, you get a pressure spike, and that puts a lot of wear and tear on the turbo itself. So by adding a blow-off valve, you get an instant release of all that boost pressure, and it's better on the turbo, better on the intake as far as the throttle body, the plate, and everything like that. So there's a lot of significant improvements and advantages to having a blow-off valve. It's not just all about the cool sound that they make when you let go of the throttle. I mean, that is in itself is a big important thing, but there's other things too that are more or less than just the cool factor. So give me a second, I'm going to get the new one in place, and then we'll go from there. All right, we got the charge tubes back on, or the new charge tube is installed. One thing I wanted to mention, when you guys are installing these, a lot of people, if you have trouble getting the tube to slide on, and it doesn't apply just to this particular application, this applies to any forced induction vehicle that you have an intercooler and you have these tubes. Never under any circumstances do you use any type of lubricant on the boost side of these systems. Here, anything after in the charge side of the system. And the reason I'm saying that is WD-40, grease, dielectric grease, wheel bearing grease, any kind of lubricant whatsoever will make these things pop off. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You always want to have these things clean and dry. If you have to, absolutely have to do anything, you could use a little bit of soapy water. And I mean, I'm talking a very, very small amount of soap, just enough to get it to help slide on, and then that soap will dry. You're going to want to let it set and dry up. But that's very, very important when you're doing this, guys. Do not put anything on there. I know it seems like, oh, hey, that's going to make it easy to work with and all that stuff, but you're asking for trouble. The last thing you want to do is be out on a trail and have one of these tubes pop off, and you don't have the proper tools to dig into it and find out what's going on, and you're going to lose boost, and it probably won't run at all because it's going to trip a code and go into limp mode or whatever. These are pretty high tech. So save yourself the trouble, and like I said, if you have to use anything, a little bit of soapy water, mostly I would say like 99% water, one little drop of soap, enough to get just a little bit of suds in there. Spray it on very lightly, put it together, and then allow it to dry before you actually start it up and build boost and take it out for a test drive, or else it's going to pop off. These have to be dry and grease free. Now this one did not come with hose clamps, so I had to reuse the clamps that were on the old one, and those, you just reuse them, snug them up. Like I said, plastic tanks, plastic throttle body, or intake portion right there. So you do not over tighten, snug fit. That's about it. And then once we get that all done, like I said, then we're going to be doing a blow-off valve. Now on mine, you have those side covers that go, so my blow-off valve is pretty big. I don't think I'm going to be able to use this one. I'm probably going to end up having to use this center one, or the one that's facing inward. So this will be the one that I'm going to end up plugging off. This comes with a real nice billet aluminum cap plug that goes in, and they give you the hose clamp, so that will be blocked off. And yeah, so that will be blocked off, but you have the ability to use either one. If you go with the different style, or you use like an elbow or whatever, you could potentially use this one. Some guys actually will modify this side cover, and then they'll have the blow-off valve actually out in the open where you can see it. So they'll drill a hole, they'll cut a hole in the side cover, and then have the blow-off valve exposed. I would rather have it protected and keep it underneath here a little bit, out of the elements, out of the mud and water and all that stuff that it's going to be exposed to potentially. So keep it protected and put it there. That's my 2 cents on that one. But we're going to go ahead and snug these up. So give me a second. And for you guys that have never tightened a hose clamp, I'm going to try to tighten one here and do it on camera for you. And I'm going to fight with this for about 30 seconds, and then I'm going to just turn the camera off. So factory clamp is you can use a Phillips or a straight, or probably a 5/16 or an 8mm. Any of those will work. I like using the screwdriver, just because then that way you're not as likely to over tighten it, because it's going to want to slip out, and you just can't get the torque with the screwdriver. Nice and snug. You want to make sure you have that clamp up far enough to where it bites, but not on the tip. You want to be centered. So that's good there. And then you've got the other one down here. Please forgive the shadow. Got a flashlight here. Try to get a better angle for you. Yeah, that's not going to work. That's pretty good. Same thing, snug up the clamp. I'm using one hand, so it's moving on me. Alright, we got the charge tube tightened up. Both clamps are tight. And like I said, what we're going to be doing is, let me find it here. Got a lot of different stuff going on right now, so forgive the mess, but we've got the golf cart we're working on, we've got the Can-Am we're working on, and I'm doing stuff on the Lightning, so I've just got different stuff going on, and I've got more projects than I do time. So, but like I said, we're gonna go with the inside one, or the inside port. So this outside port, this is that block off that I was talking about. Real nice billet aluminum, not plastic or garbage or anything like that. That's the difference between when you go with a company like EVO or Power Tune or any of these guys that make stuff. Alba Racing. I mean, there's a lot of great companies out there side-by-sides and UTVs and stuff are just so popular. It's making a lot of great companies come out of the woodwork, and it's keeping all these guys on their toes, because if they don't do a good job and they don't make good stuff, people are going to go somewhere else, because this stuff's all very, very expensive. You're not going to O'Reilly's or AutoZone or anything like that and able to buy parts for these things. So yeah, you can get cheap stuff on eBay and everything like that, but that stuff doesn't last, and people know it. So yeah, that's going to be that. You're going to plug that, and tighten. Obviously you need to use a hose clamp on there, because this is, for me, I'm going to be running right around 16 pounds of boost. So with that, there's enough boost here where if I didn't have this clamp on here, when this pipe gets hot, I mean, it would blow that right out. So you want to make sure you use your clamps and everything. Same thing with the blow-off valve and everything like that. So this is going to be part one of the blow-off valve and all that stuff video. I don't know exactly what I'm going to name it, but just a quick video to show you. And as this machine's progressing, now I'm trying to get this thing ready. I have a race here in Michigan that I'm going to try to make next weekend, which would be February 16th up north, and big money race and stuff like that. So I'm hoping to get it together and get all the bugs worked out of it. I've got tuning and stuff like that I've got to do. I'm not going to have all of the lights and electrical and all that stuff, the wiring done for that type of stuff. That's not important for this race, so I mean, that stuff I don't want to cut corners and just throw it in there and have it look like crap. So I'm just gonna, it's there, I'm not gonna take it off, but it's not gonna be functional. I'm trying to focus on the bare necessities to get this thing ready for this race, just to get a gauge of where I'm at performance wise and what I need to do to achieve the goals that I have. And this race will be a good base setting for me to see where I'm at and stuff like that, so I've got to get the blow-off valve and all that stuff done. I've still got to use my tuner, and I'm using the Map Tuner X from EVO, and I've got to do the tune with that. I've got a boost gauge that I want to get installed. I've got a oil pressure gauge that I need to get installed. I've got a real nice gauge cluster that I bought online. I showed you that in one of the intro videos. And that's this guy right here. And I want to get that installed. I want those gauges. That's important. And that's going to go right there. So once I get the charge tube and the blow-off valve and everything installed, then I can run some vacuum lines and do a little bit of electrical work and get those things hooked up, just because I don't want to go to a race and not have that type of stuff, because I've got to mess with the boost actuator, and I need to set the vacuum, the crack pressure on that, and I've got to make sure that that's functioning properly, because the last thing you want to do is overboost something and blow a head gasket or damage something, so that's important when you deal with big horsepower and high boost and stuff like that. Those things have to be right, or else you're going to be the guy that's on the sideline, broke down and working on his rig rather than racing and winning. So you have to have those things right, and you have to monitor those things properly, or else you're just going to spend more time wrenching than racing, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So yeah, I mean, I just hopefully you like the video, and pass the word on and subscribe and turn on the notifications, and I hope you like everything that I'm doing so far and everything like that, and you want to, there you go, remember that name, because it's coming for you guys. SideBySideBlog.com, I'm coming for you. All joking aside, yeah, just hopefully you like the video, and follow me along this journey, and we're going to do a lot of fun stuff this summer. Got a lot of trips planned, and going to do a lot of fun things, and have a lot of fun, and hopefully break a lot of hearts too. So talk to you soon.